Hi, I'm Abby, I have a lot of records, and this is Vinyl Monday. So welcome back, or welcome if this is your first time here. Vinyl Monday is the who, what, when, where, why, and how do I feel about classic albums in my collection. If 30-minute episodes aren't your thing, don't worry. I also do Vinyl Monday in 60 seconds here on my channel, over on my Instagram, as well as TikTok. You guys... I f***ed up. If you've been around here any length of time, you'll know that I cannot do basic mathematics to save my life, and that numbers illiteracy has now affected Mod Month. Mod Month is the 4-part Modern Classic Albums miniseries running on Fridays. But I miscounted the number of Fridays this month. Turns out there are 5, so the next Mod Month installment will actually be on May 24th. I am so sorry for this. But considering how quickly next week's main stage video is spiraling out of control, I'm honestly kind of grateful. But enough about next week and the week after that and all the stuff in between. It's getting confusing. This week's album is... The Kinks are the Village Green Preservation Society. Congrats to those who guessed this one. Remember, if you want to play along, all you gotta do is check out my community tab. That's where I post my hints to what next week's album is gonna be. I host polls where sometimes you get to pick what's on the series. I make announcements when I'm places that aren't here. You can find all of that on my channel. All right, let's take the plastic off. So my copy is a UK original. This was a hand-me-down from one of my longtime subscribers across the pond. Sometimes when he upgrades copies in his collection, he'll send the old one off to me. My original UK mono Rubber Soul came from him, my Beatles for Sale as well, my UK mono Blonde on Blonde was once his. This is some nice-ass stuff, so I can't even imagine what he's upgrading to. OG Village Greens especially. These get ungodly expensive for reasons we'll get into. So let's talk about this cover art. This is some of my favorite album art of the 60s, right up there with Rubber Soul, Odyssey, and In the Court of the Crimson King. The front cover was photographed by John Prosser. This is a brilliant use of light and color with the guys bathed in rainbow-like arcs of white light. Opening up the not a gatefold, the technical term is escaping me right now, but the album comes out on the inside instead of the outside. Inside is a photo from the same shoot with the guys stood in front of what looks like a projection of a tapestry. The back cover was photographed by Barry Wenzel. The guys are in a grassy knoll somewhere. A photo from this shoot was used for the cover in Scandinavia. Pretty much every territory Village Green was released in got different album art. I have to say this back cover kind of reminds me of what 10 Years After would do a few years later with A Space in Time. The Village Green Preservation Society is Ray Davies, or sorry, we actually have full government names on here. Raymond Douglas Davies on lead vocals, guitar, keys, and harmonica. David Russell Gordon Davies on guitar and lead vocals on Wicked Annabella. Peter Alexander Greenlaw Quaife on bass, and Michael Charles, aka Mick Avery, on drums. Our special guests include Nicky Hopkin on keys, David Whitaker arranging Village Green and Animal Farm, and Raza Davies on backing vocals. Village Green Preservation Society, or Village Green as I will definitely be shortening it to for the rest of this video, was produced by Ray Davies, engineered by Brian Humphreys. Roll transition. To understand why the Village Green Preservation Society is, well, the Village Green Preservation Society, we have to understand where the taste for preservation comes from. What did the Kinks want to preserve and why? The mid to late 60s in Britain did not just see a cultural revolution. There was a massive overhaul of Britain's infrastructure. Some sectors of the public pushed back on this makeover, seeing it as a loss of Britain's national identity and destruction destruction of history. Seeing artifacts of working class New England disappear, tobacco barns being torn down for Amazon fulfillment centers and a new Dunkin' cropping up on every corner, I can relate to the complex things these people were feeling. You're losing the place you grew up in. This revolution had a double whammy for the Kinks, with groups like The Experience, Cream, the Yardbirds at the very end of their run, Fleetwood Mac in their infancy. British pop music was sounding more American and more back to basics than ever. If you're up on your Kinks lore, you can imagine how the guys can't really relate to this trend. If you're not up on your Kinks lore, they were banned from the United States for 5 years because Ray punched a union head in the face. Ray simply had too big an idea for this back to basics thing. He wanted to make an album that was a snapshot of all things British. The guys going to dance halls as kids, see jangly piano and brass, pushed this project in the direction of Baroque pop. This is bolstered by presence of the Mellotron, the same model John Lennon played on Sgt. Pepper's and Rod Argent played on Odyssey and Oracle. Thematically, Ray wanted to capture the Britain the guys grew up in. Last of the Steam-Powered Trains is about the decommissioning of rural railways. Animal Farm and Village Green reminisce on the good old days living in the country, and the title track heralds preservation of the institutions of old. There's an appreciation for nature on songs like Sitting by the Riverside, which follows the tradition of writers like William Blake. He also influenced Nick Drake, who we covered a few weeks back. And of course, there's a hefty dose of nostalgia, picture books, and photography galore. Work on Village Green began before production of the previous album, Something Else. Village Green was very nearly a Ray solo project, and the original concept was some kind of TV special. At some point, it changes hands to the band, and considering the scope of a project like that, it was shelved in favor of something else. The TV idea did come back later, see The Origins of Arthur. A few of the Village Green songs were recorded as early as '66, but re-recorded later on. The oldest version of a song we have on this project is Village Green. It was recorded in February of '67 and produced by Shel Talmy. Shel and the Kinks parted ways, and Village Green was shelved again until rehearsals at the end of '67. Then it was shelved again while the band was on break. Village Green production finally begins in earnest in the spring of '68, and longtime engineer Alan McKenzie quits. They're dropping like flies, man. The bulk of Village Green was cut in the spring and summer at Pi Studios. The guys would record in bursts with breaks in between. The breaks were so that A, Dave could release his solo stuff, B, the guys could tour to support production costs, and C, the guys could iron out more material. Why did they need to continuously come up with more? Because according to Mick, Ray was pushing for a double album. This makes sense. '68 was a big year for the double album. See Cream's just released Wheels of Fire and Jimi Hendrix's about to be released Electric Ladyland. But Pi vetoed a double album for the Kinks. It was way too expensive and ambitious a project for a band that just wasn't pulling in the money to support it. Berkeley Muse, Did You See His Name, and Rosemary Rose were all cut in favor of tracks that were deemed better suited for the single album format. But wait, weren't the guys gigging? Surely that could have funded a double album. Well, yeah, it could. If the guys weren't flopping so hard they couldn't headline their own fucking tour, and if their single didn't flop, a whole string of singles flopped. Despite big issues with sales and singles, the guys keep trucking on. Half the album was recorded in July. The title track was actually one of the last songs cut in August. They hand in what they think is a complete Village Green. Release is set for late September, early October. All is well. Until, out of nowhere, Ray slams on the brakes. He's like, wait! I know I literally handed in the album, but it's not done. I'm gonna completely redo the sequencing, haul the whole band back into the studio to record more stuff, and remix everything I already have. Sound good? Pi said, no, it's literally not okay, Ray! Because the Scandinavian album rollout with the OG track listing had already begun. They couldn't just take back the album. So by technicality, there are two canon Village Greens. one with 13 tracks, and ones like mine with the 2 additional songs from the October sessions, Big Sky, and Last of the Steam-Powered Trains. This conundrum means there are a whole flurry of mixes, and all of them are slightly different. Even the stereo mixes have slight discrepancies. 12-track stereo got the original intended ending with this. But since the label couldn't get that sample cleared on such short notice, the 15-track mix ends like this. The final versions of Village Green were handed in November, 3 weeks after the album's release. Pi shipped it to the pressing plants with whatever the recording industry equivalent of an SOS is. The patched version of Village Green Preservation Society goes as follows. Opening up side 1, we have the Village Green Preservation Society, followed by Do You Remember Walter? Then Picture Book, next Johnny Thunder, then Last of the Steam-Powered Trains, followed by Big Sky, and side 1 closes with Sitting by the Riverside. Opening up side 2, we have Animal Farm, followed by Village Green, then Starstruck, next, Phenomenal Cat, All of My Friends Were There, then Wicked Annabella, next, Monica, and the album closes with People Take Pictures of Each Other. Village Green was released for real on November 22nd, 1968, and if that date sounds familiar, well, it should be. Because what album shares that release date? Oh, no big deal, just the fucking White Album! Surprise! Ray Davies and his insane perfectionism shot himself in the foot. To add insult to injury, a week later, Village Green caught a stray in the form of the Rolling Stones finally releasing Beggar's Banquet, insert the toilet cover debacle here. Unfortunately, the Kinks, who hadn't made an appearance in the States since '65, just couldn't compete with the 2 biggest bands in the world sales-wise. And because of Ray beefing with Pi over singles, there was no honest-to-goodness promo single. International sales of Village Green suffered big time. To this day, it is exceedingly difficult to find Kinks records here in the States. You know, now that I think of it, Village Green wasn't even the only time the Kinks screwed themselves with a release date, because the follow-up, Arthur, was released on the same day as Frank Zappa's Hot Rats and In the Court of the Goddamn Crimson King. These guys could not catch a break. Dates aside, 68 was one hell of a year. There was so much unrest, it's no wonder an album about strawberry jam and steam trains sank like the Titanic. Despite the spectacular circumstances, those who actually heard Village Green had great things to say. Here's what Paul Williams in Hey Wait a Minute, That's My Birthday had to say about Village Green once Rolling Stone finally got around to reviewing it like 6 months after its release. To begin with, Paul is a Kinks fan. He flat out states his bias. He doesn't mind Village Green's eclecticism, as he understands what the guys were trying to do with this thing and appreciates it. Insert a tangent about that one Kinks live record with the audience cheers on loop here. Here we go. The Kinks listening experience is, quote, something that can be consciously related to the sense of nostalgia, has less to do with time and things past and more to do with texture. If style is how you do it, texture is the way you make it feel. There's lots of emphasis on texture in this review. Different sounds, different feelings woven together. Shout out to this guy comparing the Kinks with Eric Satie and Maurice Sendak. Overall, Paul concluded Village Green is deliberate, intentional, carefully crafted in narrative, music, and feeling. Even Chris Gow, who seems so grumpy in print all the time, had some nice things to say about Village Green. He called it his, quote, best record of the year so far, right up there with the Flying Burrito Brothers debut, Wilson Pickett's Hey Jude, and oh god fucking damn it! I can't escape either of these 2! Nowadays, Village Green is remembered as part 2 of a 4-part run of classic Kinks albums, beginning with Something Else by the Kinks and ending with Lola vs. Power Man and the Money Go Round Part 1. Man, these guys and their long-ass titles could give Panic at the Disco and Fall Out Boy a run for their money. And Village Green's influence has manifested in some unlikely places. Sometime in 1969, a young man from Queens cuts his hair like Keith Richards and takes a stage name inspired by track 4 of this album. That's Johnny Thunders of the Heartbreakers, the New York Dolls, and Gang War. So, what do I think of Village Green? Going in, like many American fans, I have an interesting relationship with the Kinks. I hear their early hits on classic rock radio. It's no wonder I dig the early stuff. I heard Have Love Will Travel at age 13 and it ruined me forever. Lola through early alt-rock playlists populated by Lou Reed and such. Heard Waterloo Sunset, and for a long time wasn't familiar with much else. As for Village Green, I don't think I would have liked this at any earlier stage in my life. When you're just getting into 60s music, you aren't usually thrown in the deep end of Baroque pop and concept albums. Considering how niche their stuff can be, everybody's ideal entry point for the Kinks will be different. Paul Williams said as much in the Rolling Stone interview. He, quote, "Never had much luck turning people onto the Kinks and hoped the reader was already hip to them." That seems to be the key for appreciating Village Green, unfortunately. It's not a record for casual fans. I was debating whether to cover this or Lola vs. Power Man until very late in the process. So late that I filmed 2 outros for Back to Black, one with this and one with this. On my first listen through of Village Green, I didn't really warm up to it much, but after poking around and finding out about the epic release date fuckery, I was like, okay, if for nothing but the story, I have to give this thing a second chance. And boy, am I glad I did. Important note to make, I really had to rely on active listening this week, where I sit down with my setup and do nothing but listen and take notes. That's because the mixes of Village Green on streaming services are hot fucking garbage. The title track especially. Sorry, Paul, having the vocals mixed so low and the bass so high irks me. Shoegaze, fine. I'll crank the volume to work out whatever the hell they're saying. But I don't want to have to turn up a 60s pop record just to hear the dimension. I want it there from the jump. Aside from wonky sound, the title track does exactly what it's supposed to do in these early concept albums. Defines its character and its story. Just as the Beatles became Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, the Kinks become the Village Green Preservation Society, with interests in upholding the pleasures of the old world. Vaudeville, tea time, hitting up the pub with the boys, Sherlock Holmes, and virginity? I think Ray means like unspoiled land by this. And condemning modern real estate development. So true, bestie. The Rolling Stone review points out a certain detachment in Ray's writing. We've passed through nostalgic declarations of Village Green Preservation Society and are on to a more cynical Do You Remember Walter? Is it just me, or does the opening remind you of something? Oh god, it's Weezer! Nah, I'm just kidding, it's ELO, although now you have to live with the knowledge that Weezer covered Mr. Blue Sky and it's not bad? I don't know if that says more about Weezer or me. Do You Remember Walter still reminisces, but it's more bitter than the sweet jam and custard pies of the previous track. The narrator ponders the whereabouts of their titular childhood best friend, concluding that maybe the most magical thing that could have happened to him is a run-of-the-mill plaintive existence. I bet you're fat and married and you're always home in bed by 8:30, and if I talked about the old times, you'd get bored and you'll have nothing more to say. To Walter, nothing is as exciting as living in the present, even if it's boring to us. This is a very melodic record. Do You Remember Walter is no exception. There's like 3 going on here, and the vocals don't stay on one note for longer than one note. All are equally infectious and pleasing to the ear. There's a running theme of photos, photography, and pictures. Is there anything more nostalgic than an album full of Polaroids? Picture Book is vignettes of family life, summer vacations, Uncle Charlie boozing it up with his friends, even your embarrassing bare-ass naked baby photos. When you were just a baby, those days when you were happy a long time ago, if only life were as simple as it was back then. But Ray's detached tone tells us it was never that simple. Chris Gow said Last of the Steam-Powered Trains was the most obvious choice for a single, had there been the interest. Surprise, surprise, I disagree. Picture Book is one of the Kinks' signature songs for a reason. It's a catchy, acoustic, guitar-driven shuffle. It would have done numbers here in the States with our folk pop wave. It's delightfully 60s through and through, right down to the... Hey, where have I heard that before? Picture Book is quite strong for pop purposes. You knew that, I knew that, but Johnny Thunder took me by surprise on the early listen-throughs. It seems Johnny was destined for mythology, whether that be in the rock and roll canon or the Village Green canon. He lives on water, feeds on lightning, embodying the simple thrills of youthful, brash decisions. He's the exact opposite of Walter. The wafting, almost the Who-esque acoustic and breezy la-la-las seem to invoke a flower child. Makes sense for a true individual who doesn't want money. The guitar almost shadows the vocals for Thunder and Lightning, then shies away. I am addicted to this otherwise completely insignificant touch. So you know how I said this was a celebration of all things British? Yeah, that all falls apart once you get to Last of the Steam-Powered Trains. It's literally Smokestack Lightning. But in a way, it preserves something for listeners in the current day. It's an artifact of the 60s British blues boom. You literally could not escape it by 1968. The Kinks had it in their roots. No wonder it weaseled its way into Village Green. And I'm glad it did. It was the first tune that stuck out to me as familiar. These are sounds I've spent a lot of hours with, and the Kinks do them well. It's not a bust down the doors rocker by any means. The highest they crank the volume is like a 6. But the way this song builds upon itself, ramps up and crests, reveals the sense of play that motivated Village Green's creation. The spoken word on Big Sky reminds me of what Ginger Baker did with Pressed Rat and Warthog on Wheels of Fire a few months earlier. Both songs read very British in that aspect. But Big Sky is more endearing to me than Warthog was. I love this beefy, really bassy guitar tone on the scooping riff in a sea of Baroque pop sounds like acoustic guitars, harpsichords, and mellotrons. It provides necessary body, and a sonic link to the previous track. Sitting by the Riverside is a totally carefree tune I can imagine playing on a swan boat. It's very theatrical, like come on, it even has accordion, but I like the noisy, muddy crescendo. It's an unexpected elaboration on something that otherwise reads saccharine. I don't want to jump the gun or make Picture Book feel left out, but Animal Farm might be the strongest song here. To begin with, it has one of my favorite opening lines in any song: "The world is big and wild and half insane." Half the appeal is in the cadence, with a topsy-turviness reminiscent of Sgt. Pepper's Big Top moments.
For the benefit of Mr. Kite, there will be a show when I get older, losing my head.
Super memorable, sticks to your ribs. You know I'm a sucker for a jangly saloon piano. This one's got it, but the guys blend it with acoustic guitar, touches of a keyboard, and orchestral flourishes. The bass line isn't imposing, the drums ebb and flow. The Kinks did some great backing vocals, but these excel by virtue of simplicity. A song about retreating to farm life could be so hokey, but the instrumentation totally transforms it. It's a tasteful and balanced song, but not sterile. Ray quite passionately yearns for barn cats. Oddly enough, this is the most outwardly emotional I've heard him here. The narrator really regrets leaving this life behind. Tugs at your heartstrings a little, especially if you're like me and you left the country too. Having a track titled The Village Green Preservation Society, abbreviated Village Green, and another track titled Village Green has been confusing as hell. Village Green cranks the Baroque in Baroque pop to a 10 with harpsichord and brass. I might also file Village Green under medieval revival revival with this very strong emphasis on character-based narrative and what sounds like clarinet. The narrator mopes about his childhood love marrying the grocer and his hometown becoming a tourist spot for dumb Americans to gawk at. Starstruck was eventually chosen as a pseudo-single off Village Green, and it flopped. Literally, had they just swapped the A and the B sides, it would have fared much better with the popscape in '68. It wouldn't have been a blockbuster hit, but at least it would have charted. That's not to say I don't like Starstruck. I do. It reminds me of something Lou Reed would have recorded for Transformer. That theme of fame and a flashy lifestyle not being all it's cracked up to be reads very Warholian, but it's just not single material. Phenomenal Cat reads like a fable and kinda loses me, but I appreciate the blending of the flute sample with the mellotron, and I get a kick out of the sped up. I think that was Mick. Ray took himself way too seriously to be doing stuff like that. You know who didn't take themselves too seriously to be doing stuff like that? Syd Barrett. This reads like his Piper era writing, with gnomes and scarecrows and shit. All of my friends were there is where my focus starts to waver, probably because the overarching theme is starting to spiral out of control. The flow of this chorus, the organ, is really nice. I wish this was the idea that had been followed through upon. I have the same issue with this that I had with Passing the Time for so long. Maybe this will grow on me the way that eventually did. Wicked Annabella is the local folklore character, the bedtime story you tell the littles about so they don't misbehave.
Don't go out into the woods at night or Annabella will steal you away. Woo!
I'm a bit of a Dave Davies girly. I kind of channeled him today with the ruffles and lace, and let's be real, I'll take any excuse to wear this dress. Dave was the right choice to perform this darker, witchier number with his voice carries the atmosphere well. Super groovy psychedelic drums thanks to Mick, grittier, grimier guitar and bass, though not actually grimy. Village Green grimy is like having a wrinkly shirt. Paul was right. Village Green has a lot of textures. Like that of Last of the Steam-Powered Trains, I'm drawn to this one. It finds a home in my playlists. Then we have Monica, the real-life counterpart to the mythical Annabella. You know, the town tramp. Everyone knows that Monica glows at night, and we hear from the poor soul who fell in love with her. I shall die if I should lose Monica. In subject matter, it's a proto-Lola. In music, it has a quirky calypso flavor. And we finally spun out of control by People Take Pictures of Each Other. This entirely goofy, cartoony observation on how ridiculous it is that we take photos of everything. In the age of screens and social media, this sentiment has aged like a fine wine. But maybe don't drink it because it sounds like the joke was spiked. People Take Pictures is quite an absurdist angle to view something so sad. None of these moments can truly be captured because you can't ever bottle the feeling. Is it an apt closer? In theory, yes. In execution, not really. It's unfortunate that Village Green stumbles at the finish line, especially if you don't have the... Maybe the real Village Green Preservation Society was the friends we made along the way. Really though, what a baffling little record, for its time especially. In its historical context, it sticks out like a sore thumb. This was a time for pulling your socks up and putting your foot down, and at first glance, this stuff reads as buttoned up, pacified, lolly in your mouth and everything, square. But the Kinks aren't innocents or ignoramuses, the Kinks are no squares. Like another forgotten Baroque pop classic that's getting its dues, Odyssey and Oracle, Village Green is an example of happy music, sad lyrics. All these vignettes Ray and the Kinks have shown us, these people and places are long gone. Village Green's strongest quality, aside from musicianship, it's remarkable how well all 15 of these zany ideas are executed, lies in how it handles nostalgia. Sure, we can indulge, but we can never escape. And when we try to, We get disruptions. Is Village Green a timeless classic as I've seen it heralded time and time again? Absolutely not. This thing is so 1968 my teeth hurt. But A, that's the beauty of Baroque pop. And B, what's really timeless is its subject matter. Nostalgia is bigger than ever. Think about it. Instant film is more popular than ever. Synth pop and disco rules the pop charts. Songs that are 50 plus years old regularly blow up on TikTok. Love grows where my rosemary goes, anyone? And physical media is booming. Last year, Zoomers were the biggest demographic for buying vinyl, CDs, and cassettes. I'm living proof of that statistic. I'm not sure how to close this out other than stating the obvious. Village Green is perfectly suited for this series. An obvious choice, really. This little corner of the internet is a preservation society in and of itself, is it not? Silly as this can be, it'd be silly not to preserve this in its ranks. Village Green is everything this place is. Textured, varied, but still tightly woven. Above all, just far removed enough to see all the most beautiful things with a discerning eye. My personal favorites off this one are Picture Book, Johnny Thunder, Last of the Steam-Powered Trains, Big Sky, Animal Farm, and Wicked Annabella. Remember, if you want to keep up with all of my favorites from all of the Vinyl Mondays and all of the Modern Classic Month stuff, I have a Spotify playlist linked in my description. I update it every week. And that's it! That is the Kinks Are the Village Green Preservation Society. What do you think of this album? What do you think of the Kinks? Leave a comment letting me know. I love hearing what you guys have to say about albums I love. And remember, despite what some guy on the internet has to say, your opinion matters. If you like what I do here, you should like this video and subscribe to my channel. I post new episodes. What the hell? This is heavy. New episodes of Vinyl Monday every Monday morning at 11, and the next part of Mod Month will be up next Friday at noon. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next week.